In this video, we are doing a 520 chain conversion on the R7, and we're using one specialized tool, and everything else is pretty simple. So if you want to see how this is done and the tips and tricks that we're going to use to make this so easy that I think anybody could do it, then stick around. You can see I'm already halfway through on some things, but the benefits of a 520 chain conversion is less weight sat on the wheel, less weight in the chain, and also it looks cool in gold, obviously. So let's get on with it. You'll see that there's a few things that we do and reasons why we do it that makes this a lot easier. No grinding involved in this one. So just to get the chain off, no grinding, and to put the chain on, we have a clip link, and these are absolutely fine to use. Some people say that they don't like them. I've used these race bikes, track bikes. I've even reused the same one when I took the chain off to clean it. There is absolutely no problem with a clip link like this, and it makes life so much easier when we install in the chain. So stick around if you want to see how this is done. Let's get going. Well, welcome back everybody. Another job that we're going to be doing on the bike in this video is we're going to be replacing the chain and sprocket. We're going to go with a lightened aluminium rear sprocket and a 520 width chain, which is a common modification to try and remove some of the weight from the drivetrain and from the wheel, which helps a number of factors. So I've got with me a cheapo chain breaker. We just got this from Harbor Freight. We're going to give it a go, see if we can push out the rivet. I know it's common to grind down the top of the rivet to help the tool get it out. I've done that before. I always cringe when I see it, but I have done it myself, so I can't really complain about it. But I'm just going to see if we can push this one out without grinding it off and sacrifice. There's two elements in here. If we break one, we've still got another one to go at, and then we would just grind it off if we need to. But I'm trying to avoid the grinding thing if I can. So let's see how the first step goes. Okay, so actually before I break the chain apart, I've just spun off the front sprocket nut just so that we've got that loosened before we remove the chain, because that helps us hold it in place whilst we remove that, so that's good. You can do this with a big long bar, and you can put a chunk of wood between the spokes and the swing arm as well. That works, but I just find this is so much more easier if you can get one of these impact guns. Okay, so that worked good. We managed to push out the pin without needing to grind any heads or anything. This managed to push it out nice and easy, as you saw in the video. No damage, I think, to the tool, so that's good. And then we've got the chain removed, the front sprockets out of the way for now. The sprockets are yet to, well, in fact, the sprockets are ordered. The chain hasn't been ordered yet, but I was just doing some preparation since I'm not going anywhere in this cold weather. So when those arrive, we'll be back, and I've got another sprocket carrier from another wheel, so I'm gonna bolt the new sprocket onto that sprocket carrier, and then when we take the wheel out, I can just slot the whole thing on together. So alright, so the sprockets arrived, and here you can see the part numbers. I got these part numbers from the sprocketcenter.com website, and although they don't list the R7 on here, obviously they are cross-compatible with a few bikes. So I just got those part numbers and then used those to look up to see what else I could find anywhere else. So this one actually came from Sprocket Center directly from them. So that's a 15.2, so one down from standard on the front, 520 wide. And then this one is actually one down on the rear as well. So the stock is 42, I've been using 42, but with the smaller front sprocket, which gave us more acceleration, slightly less top end. So the stock rear is a 42 tooth, and this one I found for like $15 brand new from a shop in somewhere on the west coast of America. So I thought I'd grab this. It's only one tooth difference, so it still gives us more acceleration, and maybe might help us improve a little bit of top end at places like Road America, but it's close enough and was a nice bargain. So we've gone for it. I've mounted it on my spare sprocket carrier. We've applied some blue Loctite and torqued those up to the spec 59 foot-pounds. So that is ready to go on. It's nice and light. I did some weight comparisons. I've measured the weight of these new items. So I'll give you perhaps some pictures on the screen right now so you can see, but essentially I think we're saving about ½ kilogram, which is something like 1.1 pounds just with these two components, and we've not even weighed the chain yet. So anyway, this is all ready to go on the bike. This, like I say, it's a spare sprocket carrier that I had from a wheel or something that I'd bought. So nice and easy, got that all torqued up, bolted up ready, and we can slot that on when we want to. So whilst the back end of the bike was apart, I took the brake pads on the rear and I did a bit of grind down on the bottom edges where the disc slots in. I did see this on Obsession Engineering's YouTube channel, so go and check them out if you haven't already for other fun tips such as this. This is just to help us with smooth wheel changes in the rear wheel. And I really don't use the rear brake that much, so it's really not going to be a bother for me if the disc wears slightly uneven. So yeah, I thought this was a good thing to try, and so I took in a moment to do it, and should really help us slotting that back wheel in a rush. All right, so I don't think I showed you getting the wheel out, but I've done that numerous times now on my channel, so if you don't know how to do it, then go back and watch some other videos. But we got the wheel out, and we're swapping over the sprocket carrier. So like I say, this is the original sprocket carrier, and this is the spare one that I bought, and we've got that mounted up. So all I've got to do is swap over the spacer, get this bad boy out of there, and pop that in. There we go. And grab our carrier, locate that into the rubbers of the wheel nicely, and give it, I'm going to tie her against the wall, just give it a wiggle and make sure it's all the way in, and then we're good to remount our wheel in the bike. Alright, we've got the rear brake pads back in, and you kind of see the effect that that chamfer has given us. So when the disc approaches this gap, it can push the pads sideways and help us get that disc in easier. So that's the idea of that one anyway. Anyway, regardless, let's get this wheel back in, and then we can swap the bike back around. I flipped the bike around because I was working on the ABS system for a bit of a mess about with that. Didn't quite work out to plan, So we're going to get the wheel back in and then we'll flip it around to finish off our chain job. So in fairness, I did say the one specialized tool was the chain breaker. I would think by now, if you're doing your own work on your R7, you would have a set of sockets, at least for the axles. This is the standard rear axle size, which is 27 millimeters, and this now is mine because I've changed my nut out, so 30 millimeters for me, and that fits the front sprocket as well. So now I've got the same size socket, front and back actually, rear axle and front sprocket, and of course a torque wrench. But again, every good home mechanic should have one of these. So yeah, that's the real only specialized tools that you would have required. Anyway, wheels back in. It worked okay, a little bit better to get the disc in there, but it's always a bit of a pain regardless. Anyway, we're going to get the bike flipped around so we can work on the chain side. Okay, so bike flipped back around, and I've done a little bit of preparation to help me. So I've removed this side plate from the frame. That gives me a bit of access to the chain guide. So I've given that a really good clean with some WD, etc., to make sure everything's nice and spotless before we put this new chain in. We've got the new sprocket to go in, and I don't know if you can tell by looking at it, but the back side has a narrower flange than the front side. So that means we need to fit it that way, because the rear sprocket is narrower now, so the chain would sit further into the bike, if you like, hence why the front sprocket needs to sit further in too, so that the thinner flange goes at the back, and in this case that's the writing at the front as well, which is a common way to tell you've got it the right way, but it's always worth just a visual check. So this is just going to fit loosely for now. He says it doesn't seem to want to fit at all. It's gonna, I think there's some a bit of bite in the paint on the sprockets perhaps. It should go on, no problems. There we go, it's going. Just needs a little bit of a encouragement to get on, so I'm going to put the washer and the nut back in place, and we're just going to loosely tighten this. We're not going to get it torqued up without the chain on, so I'm just going to tighten this up so that it pushes the sprocket on. There we go, eases that back into place. Feels like the bike is in gear, so I need to do an adjustment there to make sure it's in neutral going forwards. Okay, so the sprocket is loosely tightened, we're in neutral now, and so I'm going to lay out the new chain around. We know that this is 2 links longer than standard, but we're going to, do a test measure before we take any links off, just so we're absolutely sure that we didn't need an extra one or whatever. So I'm going to get this unpackaged and slotted around the sprockets. Okay, so a very quick test fit here. Now obviously when you're putting in the link, you take up the space between 2 points. So in theory we would take out this rivet here, and then the link would go between those 2 holes. Just a quick chat on position of the axle. So this is a combination of gears which is quite small front, quite small back. So I'm hoping that I've got enough adjustment to go backwards and take up any of the slack, and that means that if I go backwards and still have room to maneuver forwards, if I ever try a bigger rear sprocket, like a 44 or 45, something like that, then I've got space to bring it forwards and I won't have to mess about with any different lengths of chain. So I'm going to try knocking this one out, put the link in temporarily, and then see how much adjustment I need to take up with the adjusters and go from there basically. Okay, so after a little bit of jiggling around with the adjusters, I have my slack pretty close to where I want it to be. I don't like my chain slack to be too tight, so I err on the side of a little bit loose, and that is about right. 40 mil anyway, 40 millimeters up and down, and good. And I will now show you how to clip up the chain. And again, all it is when you're doing these adjustments, you just do it nice and steady. Take your spanner and count the half turns that you're adjusting so that you can do exactly the same on the other side, and then you know that you're going to keep this straight and not give it an angle. So just be careful with that. I am right with this combination right close to the back end adjustment. So we'll see how that goes. That's kind of a good thing for me because I actually want stability in the bike. So the further the rear axle can be back, the more stability I get generally in the bike anyway. That's just a small thing to think about, but again, this is what I'm going to try. If I really have any issues, I can just take another link out of that chain and bring the whole adjuster closer into the bike if I really feel that I need to. But if you go with a bigger rear sprocket like 43, 44, 45, I'm sure you'll have no issues and you can stick with 108 links. But I've got a slightly smaller rear one for the moment, like I say. So I'm gonna look out for another one, and we'll have a combo ready, so when I'm at the track, if I want to switch out, it's nice and easy. I can just get the other sprocket carrier, slot it straight on, and try a different sprocket size if I really want to. Right, so we'll look at the clip pin, the clip connector. So here we go, then this is our clip style master link, and it comes with the seals and some of the grease. So this is a pretty simple thing to put on, but when we have to put on this plate, sometimes we need a bit of force to get that on. So just a pair of pliers can help us nip that onto the clip link. But anyway, first of all, we are going to apply our seals and grease to the link. So get the grease out first. Easier said than done. Here we go. So there should be a little tear off. There we go. So we're just going to squirt a little bit on the pins. Sorry if this is not in focus, this camera's not great at close-ups. Grab 2 of the rubber seals. This is just an O-ring seal, nothing fancy. So it's just a very basic kind of O-ring. Anyway, we'll slot that on, give it a bit of a workaround to get that grease all over the seal. And like so. Give it a workaround. Right, so that's ready to go on the back side of our chain. Like so. Then we put the front seals on. Oh, ran away. Right, so a bit more grease. We can be liberal with this because we're going to wipe it off afterwards. Now these seals take a bit of compression to get this link fitted. So here we go. I'm going to get the plate in position and give it a squeeze. But like I say, you're not going to get this on by hand, so I'm just going to grab something to squeeze that in. Okay, so I actually ended up using this as a press, but be nice and careful, because what you don't want to do is push the rivets that way. So if you have this the right way around, so with the adjuster on the back side, then this clears the heads of the front pins nicely, and then as you tighten it up from the back, it'll push that plate on and you can literally see just where it needs to go. So finally, if we look at our instructions about the direction of our clip on the front, you'll see that if the chain is moving in that direction, we want this clip mouth to go in the other direction. Yeah, so we're going to put that on because it matches that. Chain direction is that way, mouth goes opposite way. So if we put this here, just over there, and we get something with a pair of jaws like this and get the angle just right, we can kind of grab both the back of the clip. It's a bit of a fiddle, and then we just drive it on like so, and there it is. Clip link is installed. So 520 chain sprocket in place. All we've got to do now is torque up the front sprocket to the correct amount, the rear nut to the correct amount, and job's a good one. Obviously I'm gonna leave my protective coating on over the winter, but in springtime, before we come to run the bike, I'm gonna give it a good wipe off, get all of this white gunk off of there. You can leave it on the inside. It's a good lubricant to start with, but as you do your own chain maintenance, cleaning and re-greasing, that will obviously come off eventually anyway. All right, so there you go. I'll be back in a second to finalize everything. So there you have it. Installed the 520 chain and sprocket kit. Not much else to say. Obviously torque things up correctly, put the gear link back in, and yeah, tightened everything up. Looks pretty nice. I haven't cleaned all the grease off it yet, but I will do eventually, and it'll look a bit shinier and golder. But there we go, installed, good to go. Can't wait to get back out on track eventually. It's going to be a long winter, but at least this job's done, and we've got other things to be doing in some next videos. Any questions, any doubts or fears before you try and tackle something like this, again, just comment, message me, and I'll try and help you out as best as I can. But there we go, installed, good to go. If there's any adjustment, because obviously the chain stretches when you start using it, so after a few miles, double check your chain tension, and again, mine's probably going to need a bit of a tweak, that's fine, but keep an eye on it and you'll be good. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and if you can, like and subscribe and all that business, and we'll be back with another video soon. Bye for now.